Hey guys, I am going to do this really quick little video over the APA tip sheet, which you would have found on that link at the bottom of the websites and plagiarism section that you should be reading for this week. This is just a little video, hopefully to kind of explain some of the ins and outs of APA style for people who have either never written an APA style paper before, or maybe you learned a different type of technical writing such as MLA or something like that. So I'm basically just going to kind of go over this sheet just so you can get the gist of what it is I'm looking for in my class as far as when you do your reference section, or if you're going to do an in-text citation within your work. So the assignment that you're going to be doing for this week, the one over the career research, where you do need to include references. So if you have any URLs or anything like that that you got information online, you need to have that referenced in your career research assignment. So that way I would be able to tell where you got that information from. And then also, like if you're writing a paragraph about the career that you're looking at or potentially you're interested in, if you take any of that information from the websites and you're actually putting it in your paragraph, you should still have an in-text citation, which basically shows that inside your actual writing that you do, anywhere that you've added information that obviously you didn't come up with on your own and it's something that you got from somewhere else, you're basically giving credit to the author, the website, YouTube video, whatever it is, that wherever you got the information from, you're basically within your actual writing, you're basically pointing out and saying, this sentence that I wrote, that I got this information from, I didn't come up with it myself. I got it from this source. And so I'm going to kind of show you how to do that. And one thing that you need to basically understand that unless you are actually, writing a research paper that's, maybe someday you're planning on having published and it really needs to be stringent and you really have to watch all of the different technicalities of what you're doing for APA style. For most classes in college, APA style is just basically asking you to make sure that you are giving credit to whatever source that you used within your paper anytime that you use that source inside your paper. And then at the end of your paper, you're basically giving whoever is reading your paper a snapshot of every single place that you took information from, almost, kind of like a table of contents, basically, where we could see anywhere that you took information from. So that's basically your goal. You don't have to worry about your in-text citations or your reference section being perfect. You basically need to just make an honest effort to try to give credit to whatever sources that you used. So that way you're basically not plagiarizing, because that is a big no-no in college, even for a class like this where, you're not necessarily in an English class or you're not in a psychology class where you're doing research. It's still important, no matter what, in your writing. If you are taking information from any other source, you need to give credit to whoever or whatever that source is. So that way you cannot be accused of plagiarizing, because that is something that could technically get you kicked out of college if you were caught plagiarizing, because it's a big no-no. A lot of people spend a lot of time on whatever work it is that they put out there, whether they write a journal article, a book, or something like that. And if people were freely allowed to just take their ideas and use it as their own, it kind of would give nobody the it wouldn't make them want to write papers or books or things like that, because they wouldn't actually get the credit that they deserve for all the research and time they put into it. So that's why it's important to do that. So basically, when you're looking at this tip sheet that I put on the link, you're going to see that it's starting out with talking about your reference section. So it's giving you different types of sources. So that way, depending on wherever you get your information, let's say for your career research assignment that you're doing, let's say, for example, that you took something out of a book. You got a book out of the library and it's got an author, it has a title, all of that. This is showing you basically how to set that up. So it's giving you just a basic example that doesn't really have an author. It's just telling you exactly how to do it. And then they give you an example with an author. So here's the author's last name, first initial, then it's got the date of publication. So that's important to put that in there if there is a date available, the title of the book, and then it's going to have the publisher of the book. It's pretty simple. So just pay attention when you're doing your reference section. If you used a book, this is the information that it's looking for, and that's what your reference should technically look like. And then it gives you an example for ebooks. So if you found a book online, it's almost the same exact thing. You're doing the author's last name, initials, first initials, maybe middle initial if they have it, date of publication if it shows, the title of the ebook, and then it's telling you, then you basically, if you get anything online, you're going to put retrieved from, and then you're going to put the URL for wherever it was you found it. So basically you would just come up here and you would copy the URL, and then you would put that in your reference right there at the end. And it also gives you another example depending on if you found an ebook in this way. I totally forgot what DOI means, and maybe some of you know. But anyway, if that's something that you happen to find, and some of you that are probably doing some sort of computer science major, you probably know what that means better than I do. It's been quite a while since I've had to write APA style, so that slipped my mind. If you're trying to actually cite an actual chapter in a book, you could basically do this and follow along with how they're citing. So it's just basically giving you an example, a roadmap of what kind of information you need to put in your reference, depending on where you got that. And then it has an example for a print article. So if you found a journal article, it's showing you that. The difference with a journal article and a book is kind of the same thing. This is actually showing you if there's two authors, then it's showing you how to reference their names in your reference section. If there's two authors, you would put the date of the journal publication, the name of the actual title, basically the title of whatever article it is, and then you're actually going to put the name of the journal. So this, for example, is the British Journal of Educational Technology. You need to put the publication number for that actual journal. So that would be like the edition or whatnot, that would be, edition 48 of that particular journal. And then what page numbers that actual article was on. So this is helpful for someone if they wanted to go and find this actual article so they could maybe read it themselves and whatnot, they would actually be able to find it. So that's the information that we would need. A print journal article that does not use continuous pagination, whatever. It's kind of giving you an example for that. I don't know. Looks basically the same to me, so I'm not sure. Print magazine article. So, you might find something out of a magazine article, and that would be how to basically reference that. And then a print newspaper article. And then here, for most of you, this is for your reference section is most likely going to be what you're going to be using, because most of you are probably going to find your information for your career research assignment and your paper at the end of the semester. You'll probably find most of your articles, websites, anything like that online. So this is going to be really important for you to pay attention to. Look, it explained it right there. DOI, Digital Object Identifier. Okay, so I didn't even remember that. I don't even know if I've ever had to reference anything like that. So that may be why it was looking a little unfamiliar to me. But anyway, it'll show you. So if you find a journal article online that has a DOI, this is your example of what information is needed in your reference. An advanced online article with a DOI, and then a journal article without a DOI. And mainly it's kind of the same as the ebook above that we talked about, where you have to have the author's last name, first, middle initial, or first initial, the date of the publication. A lot of times when you find an online article, it will have a date of publication. It's just like if you found the article, in the library, but you're basically finding it online, it's going to have the same information available to you. So it'll have what article or what edition number for that journal, and then the page numbers that you found it on. And then you would put that retrieved from, and then the URL. So that way a person could technically click on the URL and be able to go right to that journal article and find it online. Electronic newspaper article. And then if you go to a web page and it's not technically an article that you're finding online, but you are wanting to reference a web page, a lot of times it's not going to have an author per se. A lot of times it's just going to be like, for example, a university it's a section on a university page. We're just using an example here. It doesn't technically have an author. So you would put the name of the university, and let's say you were referencing something in your paper about the administrative policy regarding student cheating and plagiarism. So that's the section on the college website that you were looking at, that you took information from. So that's basically the title of whatever article or thing that it was that you were finding online that was on a web page. And then you're going to put retrieved from. So you should still put here the date of either the last update of that web page. A lot of times, if you can't find that, it's okay to put basically an n.d. which is basically saying no date. So if you can't find a date of last update or any kind of date on a web page that you're going to put right here on this part, you can always put that n.d. and you're going to put it in parentheses. And basically here, I'll just write it on my paper in case the way that I say N or D or something like that doesn't make sense. But basically n.d. and you're putting that in parentheses, and that just stands for no date. Hopefully that didn't make it backwards for you all when I did that. So anyway, you can do that. If you can't find a date on a web page, you would just basically put in parentheses the n.d. Just indicating that you could not find a date for that web page, an update for that web page, or anything like that. So that's basically how you reference a web page. And then they even have an example here of how to reference a YouTube video. So if you took information from a YouTube video and you're taking any of that information and putting it in your paper or your work, this would be how you would reference it here. Okay. And so then they go into the section of in-text citations. I'm going to try to hopefully make this brief because I didn't want to make this video too long. But basically, in-text citation is your actual body of your work, whatever you're writing within your work. If you're actually either taking an actual sentence out of your source and you're literally putting that in your paper the way that it was written, or if you are paraphrasing it, so you're taking that information, but you're putting it into your own words, you still have to cite the source, even if you put it in your own words, because it still wasn't your original idea. So in order to give credit to someone else, it's going to show you examples here in this section of how you would basically, your in-text citation is going to usually have the author's last name, and then a lot of times it will have the date of whatever the publication is. So it's going to match up with your reference section. So that way, if I were reading your paper and you have a sentence written and then you put in parentheses an author's last name and then a date, I would be able to go to your reference section from that point in your paper and find that author's name. And then I would be able to see where you took that information from. That's basically what you're doing. That's the gist of it. If you don't have an author's name, so let's say it was a web page and you took something from right here, like where it says Kent State University, you could either say, if you took the actual sentence and you didn't make any changes to it, then you could put at the very end in parentheses, Kent State University, and then the date that that web page was updated. And I would be able to look at that on that sentence that you wrote, and I'd be able to go down to your reference section and find that reference, basically. So it's basically what you're doing with your in-text citation. Anytime you take information, whether you are quoting it exactly how it was written in the source, or whether you are paraphrasing it to make it more your own words, because a lot of times that'll make the flow of your paper a little bit better. Either way, you need to give me enough information right there where the sentence is, whether you start your sentence with the citation or whether you end your sentence with, in parentheses, the author's last name, the name of the web page, whatever it is. You have to give me at least a little blip of information so I know exactly where to go in your reference section to be able to find the reference and know where you got that information from. So that's basically what you're doing. So all you need to do if you're doing in-text citations, basically whatever it is that you're using, whether it's a web page, a book, a journal article, anything like that, it's going to show you how to do an example. If you take a direct quotation out of the book, journal, whatever, it's going to show you how to reference it inside your text, inside your paragraph, the body of your work. Or it's even going to show you here, if you are taking something from something that has a bunch of authors, more than 2 authors, this is showing you how to basically reference that in your in-text citation. So if there's more than 6 authors, you're basically going to take the last name of the very first author that was shown, and then you're going to put basically Davis et al., and then the date of either the publication, the book, whenever the web page was last updated, whatever the case may be, you would put the date, and then you would continue on with your sentence, or, if you're paraphrasing, however you're doing it. It's just giving you different examples so you basically know how to do that. But mainly, as long as I can find from your in-text citation what reference at the bottom of your reference page what reference you're referring to or where you got that information from. That's basically the gist of what you're trying to do. So don't worry about if it's perfect. Just use this APA tip sheet as a guide. So that way you would be able to kind of see, how you would do it. And basically for in-text citation, just try to look at basically what it is that you're trying to do, because even if it's a web page or anything like that, the main idea is to either put the last name of the author or the web page, the date it was last updated, and then you could write your sentence from there. Or if you're putting your in-text citation at the end of a sentence, this is basically what it looks like. So it's kind of your choice. But then it also gives you examples here of if there's more than one author, this is how it's going to look. If there's 3, 4, or 5 authors, this is how it's going to look. So basically that way you kind of know from there, because basically if there's more than 3 authors, you're going to the point where you're just putting the last name of the first author, adding this here, and then the date, because it doesn't want you to put all of the last names, because it's just going to, kind of make your sentence paper much, much longer. So that's basically all you need to know. I mean, in-text citations don't have to be that hard. You just have to basically make sure that whoever it is that's reading your paper can see that sentence and then be able to find what reference in your reference section you got that information from. So I hope this helps. I was trying not to make it too long, and I was trying not to make it too all over the place, because I know I tend to, jibber jabber, and I go off into some other spectrum sometimes, and I try not to. But just email me if you have any other questions. Just basically, if you need to kind of see down here, it actually shows you what a reference section looks like, so you can kind of see how it's all in alphabetical order, and then all the information like that, so you can kind of see how your reference section needs to look. And then I think that's it for this. And then just as far as your in-text citation, just make sure that you're giving me enough information on whether you write the sentence in your own words or you take a direct quotation from your source, that you basically give me enough information that I'll be able to go down here and be able to see that last name, and I'd be able to find the reference that you took that information from. So that way, maybe I want to use that information, and then I could go to that journal article and I could use that if I thought it had good information. So, or if it's somebody that's wanting to check up and make sure that you weren't plagiarizing, that's basically what you're doing, is you're giving credit to that author. So I hope this was helpful.